INC 5.2, to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. My name is Keisha Rukikaire, Head of News and Media for UNEP. I'll be moderating this short briefing. So this afternoon, we'll hear some remarks from our panel, who will then take a few questions. And on our panel today, we have Ms. Inge Anderson, who is the Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme. We have Ambassador Luis Valles Valdivieso, who is the Chair of the INC. We have Ms. Katrin Scheenberger, who is the Director of Switzerland's Federal Office for the Environment. And we have Ms. Jyoti Mathur-Philip, who is the Executive Secretary of the INC. Now, before we get to our speakers, I'll go over a couple of housekeeping rules. We have about 40 minutes or so available, and we hope to use more than half of that time for questions. The session is being live streamed by UN Web TV. Now, for media with questions, once we move to the Q&A portion, when I call on you, before you ask your question, please state your name and media outlet that you represent. If you are not a member of the media, you're free to observe the press briefing, but questions should be limited to journalists, please. Now, our first speaker this afternoon is Ms. Inge Anderson, Executive Director of UNEP. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to members of the press. As I said this morning, we have arrived here after three and a half years of hard work, and we really do see a possible pathway to the treaty. Yeah, it's complicated. Yes, the pathway may be narrow, but yes, it absolutely exists. And so we've stood at the crossroads before in multilateral settings, and we know very well what now needs to happen. We cannot let this opportunity bypass us. And we have a very critical road ahead now in the coming 10 days for member states who are negotiating as members of this committee to land the treaty text with a strong engagement and listening closely to observers who wish to inform of their positions. I think the heads of delegation, which was arranged under our very able chair, and I have to give big credit to the chair for getting us this far. The heads of delegations meeting, which took place in Nairobi just a few weeks back, everyone said clearly, we are going to Geneva with the intention to secure this treaty. And that's something that we very much took on board. Now, we of course understand that nothing is guaranteed, and we also understand very much that the ball is very much firmly in their court. Let me also give a big shout out of thanks to Katrin Schneeberger, who is a state secretary and runs all things environmental in this country under the presidency and the 7 ministers who run the beautiful Switzerland. Let me say that we are very, very grateful, Madame, for your leadership and for the generous hospitality of allowing us to come here, and for, yes, the financial support that you have provided. Now, back to plastics. We can't forget that the world wants and indeed needs a plastic convention or treaty, because the crisis is getting out of hand and people are frankly outraged, people who are living with that pollution. We know that plastic is in our nature, in our oceans, and yes, even in our bodies. And so as today we're producing around 430 million tons annually, and as a large proportion of that ends up untreated and unmanaged in the open environment, it is clear that if we continue as we are under business as usual scenario, plastic production is set to triple, and we have to make a gear change. That is why we are here, and that is why public pressure to get this thing done is so high. But let's be very clear, getting the treaty is not the final step, that is the first step. And so it is not the end point. Resolution 514 at UNEA in 2022 paved the way. And as the executive director of UNEP, it's our job inside the United Nations to sort of create that big tent where all member states can fit. That's multilateralism at its finest. And that includes, of course, stakeholders who are helping to secure this treaty. But negotiations are never easy, but they are doable, even when multilateralism may be in wavy oceans. We saw just a month ago the gaveling of this Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on chemicals, waste, and pollution. That is a triplet. That will be a triplet to IPCC, Science Policy Panel on Climate, and IPBES, Science Policy Panel on Biodiversity. That was gavelled in the midst of complexity at the political level. Nevertheless, multilateralism delivered. And just a few months back, the pandemic treaty was gavelled here in this beautiful city as well. So, since Busan, there's been a lot of diplomacy. We have seen the chair engage extensively. We've seen regional consultations, heads of delegation meeting, and of course informal ministerials, as we've done at the sidelines of COPs. We also did it at the sidelines of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm COP, and indeed on the sidelines of the Nice Ocean meeting. And I think the chair, I really appreciate and admire that you constantly created spaces for those negotiations and informal exchanges. The agenda is very clear. This is the longest INC yet, with 10 days, but the opening plenary, and congrats, because you just got it through and we didn't get stuck on procedure. This is very important. Delegations are now hard at work. Work can begin straight away, and the contact groups will be starting right after lunch. And so the draft text is really now in the ownership of the contact groups, and they will do the hard work. It is clear that there's still some areas where we will need to see convergence. That's the job of the contact groups. And we hope very much that the final treaty text will be strong, but also that will include clear hooks for what the future will bring. A treaty has to be for the ages, not for the moment. We, UNEP, we are sitting with treaties that are 30, 40 years old, and they have to have the robustness, but also the language that enables them to evolve. On the ministerial, we're expecting something like 25 ministers and high-level representatives Wednesday and Thursday next week. This is an informal session that is outside the formal negotiations, and how ministers engage is obviously up to them, how they engage in the negotiations. Finally, just to conclude, yes, can we get this done? Yes, it is truly possible. We can find it. Now is the time. We all know where the positions are. And I really want to say that delegations have come here with the intent of making it happen. And so thank you very much for that. And now I look forward to your questions after the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Our next speaker is Ambassador Luis Vallas Valdivieso. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. It is so nice to see you here, dear members from the media. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Switzerland for welcoming us here in this scenic Geneva, beautiful city. I'm pleased to speak with you today at the opening of this resumed session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution. Allow me to begin by sincerely thanking you all, that we know that there are more than 300 members of media from over 200 outlets who are here in INC 5.2. So thank you very much for that big presence of you here in INC 5.2. Your ongoing presence and coverage truly make a difference. You are not just documenting the historic process, but you are also bridging between these negotiation rooms and a world that closely follows our work, filled with high hopes and great expectations. As negotiations have advanced, the awareness of this process has grown significantly. That should not surprise us. The goal we are working toward, the creation of a legally binding international instrument on plastic pollution, is one of the most urgent environmental priorities of our time. As such, it has attracted increasing attention from the public, not to mention from policymakers, scientists, communities, youth, and civil society organizations worldwide. We are here today to fulfill an international mandate. August 14 is not just a deadline for our work. It is a date by which we must deliver. The world depends on us to finalize an agreement that is effective and inclusive, one that sets clear and credible rules to end plastic pollution and what that can enable over time rooted in science and fairness. This resume session provides a unique and a historic opportunity for the international community to bridge differences and find common grounds. It is not just a test of our diplomacy, it is a test of our collective responsibility to protect the environment, safeguard human health, enable sustainable economies, and stand in solidarity with those most affected by this crisis. I sincerely thank Member States for their support of, of our organizational work, which has been carefully planned to meet the needs of the process at this critical stage. I'm especially pleased that the opening plenary this morning finished in a very constructive spirit, enabling negotiations to begin without delay. This sense of urgency and responsibility is exactly what this moment requires. We now have a clear path ahead, and we must walk it together with determination, professionalism, and mutual respect. I firmly believe that with the continued support and cooperation from all delegations, the committee can complete its work by the end of the resume session here in Geneva. And let us be clear, the success of these sessions will be a success not just of governments, but of the entire global community. As you know, we are not beginning from zero. We are building on 5 sessions of hard work, engagement, and convergence. The chair's text and the structured approach to the negotiations provide us with the essential tools to move steadily forward, generating the broadest possible alignment. Now, it is up to all of us, especially the member states whose delegations are involved in these negotiations, to turn these tools into concrete results. Distinguished members of the press, thank you again for joining us in this journey. Your role is essential. You promote transparency and share knowledge about the process, helping to keep the world informed and engaged. As we approach this opportunity, I trust that governments are currently recognizing not only the urgency, but also the unique opportunity that negotiating an international legally binding instrument in Geneva represents, an effective agreement that shapes history through collective actions and measurable results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. And next, from our gracious host country, Ms. Katrin Schneeberger, Director of the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment. Over to you.
Dear media representatives, it is a great pleasure for Switzerland to host these pivotal negotiations aimed at finalizing a treaty to end plastic pollution. Today, we stand at the critical crossroads. Plastic waste is choking our lakes, harming wildlife, and threatening human health. This is more than just an environmental issue. It is a global challenge that demands urgent and collective action. Reaching a global agreement to end plastic pollution is essential. Over the coming days, we have an opportunity to make a real difference. By negotiating an effective plastics treaty and identifying comprehensive solutions and measures that address the full life cycle of plastic. We are aware that much work lies ahead. At the same time, we see a strong political will to find common ground. Let me also clarify an important point. Contrary to some media reports, this is no call for a production cap. Clarifying this in informal meetings was an important message to producing countries. Reaching a shared understanding that measures are needed on both the production and consumption sides can help unlock the negotiations. Another helpful element will be better explain the economic opportunities of an effective treaty. Well-designed measures can enhance the circular economy, foster innovation and research, and stimulate investments, especially from the private sector, in alternative products and sustainable systems. As a representative of Switzerland, it is an honor to welcome this final round of negotiations in Geneva. We believe that the successful INC 5.2 will be critical in mitigating the environmental, social and economic threats posed by plastic pollution. It will also send a strong signal in support of multilateralism. In this context, Geneva's expertise and existing institutional infrastructure are highly relevant. Geneva is a global hub for environmental governance, particularly in the field of pollution. It is a city that embodies dialogue, cooperation, and a deep commitment to multilateralism. The Palais des Nations, where we meet today, stands as a symbol of that commitment, a place where governments and stakeholders come together to find common solutions. The goal is clear: to end plastic pollution. This is not merely an ambitious aspiration, it is a necessity. The time is to act now. We will acknowledge that there is far too much plastic pollution in the world. Let's not waste the opportunity to make meaningful and effective progress. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Director. And just before Q&A, we will now hear from the Executive Secretary of the INC Secretariat, Ms. Jyoti Philip.
Thank you so much. And if you allow me, all courtesies observed, to give you more time for Q&A, I just want to give you some logistical updates and some background on how you can follow the meeting. So this is our largest session yet. We have 3,700 participants registered and able to participate in this session. We have more than 1,800 participants that have from member states that have already joined us here in person. We have 184 member states that have registered to attend, and over 619 observer organizations. The live daily schedule is available on the INC website, and this also includes when plenary sessions will take place. This is also available through a mobile app, which is called the Plastics Pollution Negotiations app, if you want to download that. This session will also include a legal drafting group who will work to refine the text legally before it's adopted on 14th, hopefully on 14th of August. We also have all our plenary sessions are live streamed and interpreted in all 6 UN languages. Documentation will be continuously updated, ensuring that everyone, stakeholders worldwide, can follow the developments in real time. And I think that's all I can add right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Executive Secretary. So we'll move to the Q&A session now. Please raise your hand and ask your question. Don't forget to state your name and outlet. We'll go here first.
Laurent Siro, Swiss News Agency. Thanks for that press conference. Question for Inger Henderson and Catherine Schneeberger, because you both stressed on that full life cycle, which is the target. And you mentioned, Madame, that the gap, since Busan has been reduced with the producing countries, there won't be any production cap. But how do you see that last mile that still has to be run towards these producing countries and the bunch of countries which were opposing the treaty in Busan? Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Anderson, you'd like to start?
Thank you very much. I think where I'd like to start is at the UNEA resolution itself, because it was very, very clear. And the UNEA resolution speaks to life cycle approach as well as to promote sustainable production and consumption of plastics. And therein lies, and then it says, through, amongst other things, product design, environmentally sound waste management, including resource efficiency and circular economy approaches. I'm sure that you've read this and are well aware. The magic lies within these words. And it is for member states to look at those words and look at, therefore, what does national circumstances and capability look like, because that's also in the treaty text. What is life cycle approach? Certainly the intent is very much from beginning to end of the life cycle and not part of it. And certainly sustainable production and consumption of plastics. Therein lies the issues, and I think it would be and that's exactly what is going on. Is it contact group 1, I believe, at any rate, one of the contact groups that looking at that. There are still clear views on this from a number of member states, but there's also an understanding that if we take the issue of sustainable consumption and production of plastics into the definitionals, and therefore how we will measure, monitor, and implement this, that is where the magic key lies, and that is what is in negotiations right now. I think on the issue of life cycle approach, I think, again, there's a broader understanding what that means. It means that from the beginning to the end, but different approaches by different member states. As you may know, I live in Kenya, and Kenya doesn't have high-end recycling as an example, and so would not be able to do, for example, what is being done in Switzerland as easily as. And so one would have to take that life cycle approach somewhat differently. Some will have to deal with reduction, others will have to deal with mechanical recycling, and others will deal with alternatives. Let's see how we can get to this through the negotiations. I think there's a lot of good faith in the working group right now, in the contact group, and I'm confident that they will reach there.
Ms. Schneeberger?
Well, thank you, Inger. I mean, you have mentioned it correctly. I guess to find a solution in the negotiations, it was really important to clarify that point, as I've mentioned before, that we are not talking about a production cap in order to limit the production, but that we understand that it's the full life cycle from the production to the consumption, and in this sense it's not neither production or consumption, but it's both has to go hands in hands. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Steve Tolokan from Plastics News.
Apologies. So Steve Tolokan with Plastics News. I want to follow up on the production cap question to Minister Schneeberger and the other panelists also. Are you saying that it became obvious at the heads of delegation meetings that if the treaty was going to have any chance of passing, you had to say there could not be a specific production cap in the treaty? Obviously, there were